Okay, so we have understood the concept of speed, that what exactly is meant by speed. Speed means distance travelled per unit of time. Then in unit time, how much distance I am travelling, it represents the speed. But we also discussed that speed do not have any direction. If I am saying I am travelling with 2 kilometers per hour, okay, so it means every 1 hour, in every 1 hour I will going to travel 2 kilometers, okay, I am moving by 2 kilometers. But it is kind of incomplete when I say I am travelling at the speed of 2 kilometers per hour. It's because in which direction I am travelling is also an important point. Okay, if I am just saying I am travelling by 2 kilometers per hour, this definition, this statement is incomplete. It's because I should also tell that I am travelling 2 kilometers per hour in north direction, or let's say east direction, or let us say northeast direction, or any kind of direction. So what I will say, when this incompleteness of speed, that is the direction, if the speed is added with a direction, we name this complete quantity as velocity. Okay, so velocity is something, velocity is the speed which has direction. Okay, so what is velocity? How will you define velocity? Velocity means it is the speed with direction. Okay, it is the speed coupled with direction. When you include speed, when you include direction with the speed, I will say it becomes velocity. Okay, so for example, if I write, let us say 2 kilometers per hour. So 2 kilometers per hour will only represent speed. Okay, but it do not tell us that in which direction I am going, in where I am going, basically in which direction I am travelling. So if I write 2 kilometers per hour and then if I include, let us say north, n, so n represents north. So this complete quantity becomes velocity. Okay, this complete quantity becomes velocity. So velocity is simply speed with direction. In a simple term, it is speed with direction, that's it. Okay, this is the only difference between speed and velocity. Now most important, as I told you, there are two types of quantity. One quantity which has only magnitude, while other quantity has magnitude as well as direction. So velocity is something which has magnitude as well as direction. Magnitude is represented by speed, so speed represents magnitude, okay, and this is the direction. So what kind of quantity will this velocity become? What kind of quantity will this velocity become? I can say, since it has magnitude, it has direction, so definitely it is a vector quantity. Velocity is a vector quantity. So definitely it's a vector quantity because it has speed as well as direction. So if anyone asks you why velocity is a vector quantity, just simply respond that it has speed as well as it has direction. Speed means magnitude and direction. So direction means this north or northeast or anything. You might have heard in movies and your cartoon that someone says that I am travelling 40 degree towards east. So what does this mean? 40 degree towards east means this is the direction which he is basically specifying, that I am travelling 100 kilometers per hour to 30 degree towards north. So it means I am travelling with the magnitude of 100 kilometers per hour, but my direction is 30 degree towards north, that is 30 degree from north. Okay, you can understand this angle 30 degree from north. We will understand this concept later. Okay, so this is basically the velocity. Now the most important point, what should be the unit of velocity? There is no difference between the unit of speed and velocity. Speed and velocity both has the same unit. Okay. Now the only difference is velocity means displacement per unit of time. Okay, velocity means it is basically displacement per unit of time. Remember, recall the definition of speed. Speed means distance per unit of time. So here we have since velocity, so velocity means displacement per unit of time. Why? I told you displacement is what? It's a vector quantity while distance is a scalar quantity. So speed is also a scalar quantity. So in speed we have distance, in velocity we have displacement, because displacement is a vector quantity. Okay. So velocity, I can write it as, velocity is basically displacement in a direction upon time. Okay, time taken to travel. So displacement in some particular direction divided by time taken will represent the velocity. See, now if I talk about how to represent velocity, so V is used to denote the velocity. Okay, V is used to denote the velocity. Displacement is denoted by S. Okay, we used to generally represent displacement by S. You might get confused that S means speed, but try to understand that is the S for speed. You have used it in your earlier classes, but from now always use V for velocity or speed and S for distance or displacement. Okay, so S upon time taken can be represented by T. So since they are vector quantity, now to show that velocity is a vector quantity, we will put an arrow on it. This arrow represents direction. Okay, this arrow represents that this quantity is a vector quantity. So V bar, V upon V, this arrow means this is a velocity. If I talk about only V, V represents speed. Okay, similarly S, if I am just writing S, it represents distance, but if I put an arrow on it, it will become displacement, because this S represents that this is a vector quantity. Now should I put an arrow on this T as well? Should I put an arrow on this T as well? No, I will not put an arrow on this T. It's because time is a scalar quantity. Time is not a vector quantity, it's a scalar quantity, hence T will represent no vector, so there is no arrow on it. Okay, so this is the velocity. Velocity is displacement per unit of time. Okay, so here we have a definition of uniform velocity. So what is uniform velocity? Uniform velocity means if an object travels equal distances in equal interval of time in a straight line. Okay, if an object travels equal distances, okay, equal distances in equal interval of time in a straight line, then it is said to be traveling in, or it is said to be traveling with uniform velocity. So this is the most important definition of uniform velocity. See what I am saying, that the object is traveling equal distances in equal interval of time. This is what we have studied in the speed as well, that if an object travels equal distances in equal interval of time, its speed will remain same, it will travel by uniform speed. But in this case what we have extra is the direction, it has to travel in a straight line. Okay, if an object is traveling continuously like this, for example in this direction, then from A to B it traveled, let's say it traveled in this direction, then from B to C let us say it traveled again in this direction, then C to D let us say again it traveled in this direction. So what I can see, every time this object is traveling in this direction, so its velocity will be said uniform velocity, otherwise its velocity will not be said as uniform velocity. Okay, we cannot say that the velocity is uniform if the direction changes. Now let's understand this concept as well. Let's say an object travel from point A to point B, that is 100 kilometers in 1 hour. Okay, the object travelled from point A to point B, that is 100 kilometers in 1 hour. Okay, so he is travelling in this direction. Okay, he travelled in this direction. Let us say again the object travelled from B to point C, that is again 100 kilometers in 1 hour. So again for this motion he travelled in this direction. Okay, he is travelling in the same direction, but let us say he travelled from point C to point D, that is 100 kilometers in 1 hour, but this time he travelled in this direction. Okay, just observe the figure, he travelled from A to B like this, from B to C like this straight, but from C to D he travelled like this. So what I can say, he is travelling 100 km in 1 hour, again 100 km in 1 hour, again 100 km in 1 hour, but its direction is changed. Here the direction is changed. But what is velocity? Velocity means speed plus direction. So here I will say that speed is uniform but velocity is not. Okay, here speed is uniform because he is actually travelling 100 km in 1 hour, 100 km in 1 hour, again 100 km in 1 hour, but velocity cannot be same. Reason? For uniform velocity, equal distances in equal interval of time in a straight line, it has to travel in a straight line, then only the velocity will be uniform, otherwise velocity cannot be uniform. So as such in this case, if he travelled like this, the velocity cannot be uniform, but yes, speed can be uniform, because speed do not matter with the direction. Okay, speed do not have any connection with the direction, speed can be in any direction, it do not matter. In speed we just considered distance and time, distance and time, distance and time, that's it. Okay, so this is how the velocity is defined. So first you note this, then we will understand the velocity in much details. Okay, so we define velocity as speed plus direction. Now some important points to be remembered about velocity is, velocity can change if velocity can change. Now how can the velocity be changed? Velocity can be changed if speed changes. Okay, if some object is traveling, okay, if some object is traveling with a constant speed and suddenly the speed changes, the velocity will automatically going to change. For example, let's say I moved from point A to point B, let's say 100 kilometers in 1 hour. Okay, so to travel from point A to point B, I travelled in this direction. Now let's say I again traveled from point B to point C, but this time in 1 hour I traveled only 80 kilometers. So what you can see, although I am traveling in the same direction, my direction is not getting changed. I am traveling in the same direction, but in first 1 hour I traveled 100 kilometers, in second 1 hour I traveled only 80 kilometers. So I am traveling unequal distances, 180 are not equal, and 1 hour, so equal intervals of time. So what I can say, even I am traveling in the same direction, but the speed is changed. So if the speed changes, the velocity will going to change. So because what we have said, velocity is sum of speed and direction. If speed changes, velocity will change. If direction changes, then also velocity will change. So in this case, even the speed is, even the direction is same. So let me write here, direction is same, but speed changes. Direction is same but speed changes, hence velocity will change. So this implies velocity will change. Okay, velocity will change. And let's say in a second, how can velocity be changed? If direction changes, if the direction of an object, traveling object is changed, then the velocity will going to change. So for example, let's say I travel from A to B, that is 100 kilometers in 1 hour. Okay, then I travel from, let's say, B to C, again 100 kilometers in 1 hour. So when I was traveling from A to B, I can see my direction was like this. In this direction I should travel, but from B to C I traveled in this direction. Okay, so from A to B my direction is like this, but from B to C my direction is changed. So what I can say, even I am traveling 100 km in 1 hour, 100 km in 1 hour, so speed is not changed, but the velocity will change because direction is changed. So here I can write, so what we can see here, direction is same but speed changes. So in this case what I can write, speed is same but direction changes. So this implies velocity will change because direction is different, even though the speed is same, but velocity will going to change because velocity is the sum of these two things. Okay, then third case we can have both speed and direction changes. If both the speed and direction both changes, then what will happen? Definitely the velocity will going to change. For example, I traveled from point A to point B, let's say 100 kilometers in 1 hour, and then I traveled from point B to, let's say, point C, 80 kilometers in next 1 hour. So what I can see, first I was traveling in this direction, now I am traveling in this direction. So what you can see, direction is changed. Previously I was in this direction, but now I am traveling in this direction. And what about speed? Can you see speed is constant or changed? We can see in first 1 hour I traveled 100 kilometers, in next 1 hour I traveled only 80 kilometers. So it means speed is also changed and velocity, the direction is also changed. So definitely the velocity has to change. So here I will write both speed and direction changes. So it implies velocity will change. Okay. So what does this conclude? That what is uniform velocity? Uniform velocity means when the speed and direction both are constant, both are not changing, then only the velocity will be uniform. What about non-uniform velocity? Non-uniform means even if you are traveling by different distances in the same direction, then also the velocity will change, or even if you are traveling the same distances in different directions, the velocity will going to change. Even if the direction changes, velocity will change, speed changes, velocity will change. So it do not matter that whether one of them is constant or not, simply you can say velocity will change even if one factor is changed. Okay. So this is how we can define the velocity. And what about the unit of velocity? Unit of velocity will remain same as that unit of speed. So unit of velocity is simply meters per second. Okay, unit of velocity will remain meters per second. Okay, meters per second. This is how you can define the term velocity or unit of velocity. Now we have one more concept related to this, is concept of average velocity. Okay, concept of average velocity. See, in the case of speed, what we did is average velocity means total distance upon total time, but here the average velocity will be, average velocity v vector will be initial plus final velocity upon 2. Okay, this is how we define the average velocity concept, is initial velocity plus final velocity upon 2. We will not discuss this concept in detail, it is just like you need to remember this formula for application in the exam. Otherwise it is not at all very much important. Just remember that average velocity is something which is initial plus final velocity upon 2, that's it. Okay, this is only thing you just need to know. The most important thing is this concept, that is the changes in the velocity, how the velocity is changed. Okay, so this concept is most important. So in this way we have defined the velocity, we have understood the unit, and we have understood the the base of this velocity, that is speed and direction. Okay, so this completes the velocity. You can note this, and then we will continue with the new term, that is change in velocity, that is a new term called acceleration. Okay, so you can note this.